Hey guys, what's going on? Memes here. We're gonna do a little bit of something different here because actually one of my new favorite YouTube channels, Surreal Physics, links in the doobly-doo, um, they ended up winning, or one of the winners from Curt Jaimungal from the Theories of Everything YouTube channel's Pace One contest. One of the 5 winners, and totally my favorite video from the entire contest. I believe she had released new content. I believe I apologize. But they had released a new video, and I'm like, oh, this is absolutely fascinating. Things are going to get real, or is it imaginary? But we're going to review their original submission to the Pace One contest um, because it gets the old noggin a jug, and it makes you think basically, what is it? The guy that the game of life, something John Cantor? No, those are Cantor. We're gonna get into it right now, but basically another method of constructing numbers via kind of the game of life. Some may say it was the guy that invented it. Basically, you have 2 players. It's like you just make a choice, just continue to go. It's fascinating. Let's look at it. There we go.
Did we invent the numbers,
Oh,
like some made-up tool, or did we discover them? Maybe this seems like a frivolous question. Why care? Just get on with the calculations. But if some math...
I'm just saying that I've heard a lot of folks, the meme was, "Shut up and calculate." Now, we can totally do that. We can definitely get some cool numbers. Why do we get the numbers? Just something to ponder.
math is invented and some is discovered, then wouldn't paying some attention to this help us build our best tools, help our equations not blow up so much? For
Totally agree.
instance, in our persistent problems of the most foundational models of physics, sometimes
Persistent issues within the foundation of physics? You had me when you asked the initial question. Continue.
we forget, as useful as they are, that we've bottled uncountable infinities of both time and space in smooth and continuous
I hear a lot of
space-time,
folks talking
all at
about
once,
infinities.
everywhere in the universe. These important assumptions deserve some good questions.
Okay. Number one, the way these videos are crafted, the amount of care that goes into them, just the entire video itself, the subtle puns, the audio, the direct descriptions, and the visualizations are spectacular. I like pretty pictures.
In this series of videos, we will look at math and physics with a healthy dose of artistic visualization, aiming to inspire without too much jargon, though some basics are assumed. You are encouraged to read further on any concept included without full explanation due to time constraints. For the most important concepts, you will see the formal math. Don't panic. You can let its beauty wash over you.
Oh no. Now again, I didn't understand math like halfway through the 6th grade when our teacher was like, you don't need to know this now, but this will be useful later. I was just doodling in my notebook because I was bored. And she taught us how to cross multiply fractions. Fast forward to the 7th grade. Now you know how to cross multiply fractions. Here's some numbers. Now, I probably could have asked some questions and everything, but I didn't want to look like I was stupid. It was stupid not to ask, in my opinion. We don't want to use mean words here. But now here's the thing. In more recent years, like when it came to like, I don't know, an upper level finance class and like nuclear chemistry, then I also it's like, oh, I understand calculus. I just need a reason. And anybody that's played any like video games, you're kind of doing calculus, just computing and everything. I'm just saying, just the opinion of a dude on the internet. That's all. We return. Oh yes, and we have Wolfram Alpha, so you just type the numbers in, and it will like do the math for you. It helps you. You can go the step by step as well.
If you must, but I strongly encourage you to wrestle with it until it makes sense. The dividends are worth it. I am professionally trained. I have a doctorate in physics, but this is still a journey for me. There is so much.
This is a very smart person.
that I am still learning and unlearning. In time, we will examine how relativistic constructions of numbers, including complex quaternion, octonion numbers, and beyond, as well as games, may usefully bring new insights to old problems in physics, including how information is reconciled across matter and mind. We start in this initial.
Wait. Over matter and mind? That sounds like a wee bit of a dualistic approach. Continue.
Episode with the surreal numbers and begin to unpack what they might teach us. To build from there, we'll work through a few flavors of explanatory context, so by the time you see the formal equations, you'll be ready for them. This is important for our applied thought experiments that follow. Before jumping into the surreals, let's take a hard look at their most basic ingredients, including the very concept of number, to help us break them down as monoliths.
The concept of number itself? I thought they were just a bunch of things we made up. I'm just saying that if only there may be some geometric object that may or may not have its first homology group being, I don't know, the integers. Maybe we start from there. I don't know. Oh, and maybe a focal 0,000 point might help. That is total conjecture on my part. It may explain a lot.
Let's think in symbols we're familiar with without losing sight of what numerals point to.
I mean,
What
just
is the
look at
humblest beginning of
animation.
quantity?
The one is
The
just coming up
concept
from the
of
line.
one is a good one. It's pretty foundational, but it cannot stand alone.
Well, one what?
Zero seems even more necessary, even if human cultures establish the concept as a whole after one. But is there anything more necessary?
Do things too.
How much further can we go? Too far.
Whoa.
Don't worry, we'll return to you.
-1. Oh, that was a more recent one. We got all complex and everything. So when you take the square root of -1, apparently it was there all along. It basically has like a 60-degree rotation on the imaginary axis, which doesn't necessarily seem all that imaginary anymore. It's almost like we were trolling people. We all know nobody would ever troll on the internet. Continue.
We need to start as simply as possible. Here we go. This. Let's start here. It's not nothing, but it's close. It's our best representation of nothing. It's the empty set, the void, empty of structure, empty of consistency, empty of coherence.
Conceptualization.
So it's impossible to faithfully.
So technically, Dr. Hassenfeld did an excellent video on like, well, what is nothing? It's like, well, empty space. Well, this vacuum. Technically, even the vacuum means no true vacuum. There's energy fluctuations. It's interesting. Well, even if you took that, it's like, well, what about math? Does math? We got to remove the maths and everything. It's like, I think there's. Oh, who did it? Someone else did like a 9 layers or levels of nothingness. It's like you just keep on subtracting things. It's like, what about the thoughts? What about the? Are we removing mind? And again, activates the almond. Some may say. Hey, welcome, Hex. Good to see you. Good to see you. Yes, we're getting all nerdy here. The link is in the do. I'm not going through the whole thing. This is definitely a channel worth checking out if you're into math, metaphors, and beautiful imagery. It's so spectacular. It definitely they earn the win.
Represent. It's not actually what you see. Here you see a pseudo randomness, which is actually not very random at the end of the day. This is fake noise, which always has latent structure buried within it if you know how to look. Curly brackets with no symbol in between, a more familiar symbol for the empty set. Or this, the null sign. Oh, it's just the same as zero? Not necessarily. Zero is our reference point of origin, used to measure the rest of the number.
A reference point of origin. I don't know. Might this help us derive some form of path towards what we seek? What are we seeking? Well, that might depend upon the observer. We continue.
Not exactly the shapeless, dimensionless, formless, unmeasurable, chaotic void. But modern set theory and its many mathematical applications cannot actually agree on this. My humble opinion is that they are not the same.
Wait a second. Nobody would ever disagree on the internet or on anything else.
Begin to see why in a moment. Also note that to say the null set means something different in measure theory now, so we can no longer equate these terms. Measure theory is relevant.
That's also another thing that I noticed, because it was one of the things that Thad went over with me. It's like, what's the definition of prime number? Number only divisible by 1 itself. And I'm like, all right, well, why we include the 1? It's like, well, we don't. No, but that was part of the definition. It's like, I think I just literally listened to a video. I'm not sure if it was it was like a larger math channel. And it's like, well, we don't count 1. I'm like, wait a second. I go back. It's like, we used to, up until like 1945 or something. I guess there was some. I asked it on a YouTube channel, I think from like Michael Penn or something like that, and it's like, well, when we exclude 1, it makes doing rings or something easier. I'm like, okay, that's cool, but it's like, didn't we do like a lot of like math and physics and stuff and things like? Did we include 1 as being prime back in the day? I mean, we're not basing things on when we included it as prime and then we're excluding it as prime, and because we're building off that, we accounted for that, right? And maybe we try other things. I don't know. Just kind of like, it's like, oh yeah, electron is totally negative charge. Ben, you took a shot in the dark. Hey, we all get things wrong. None of us is perfect. But I'm not saying that correcting those things might enlighten or clear up some of the cartography, some may say, on the map, but continue.
To physics beyond its null set, which is more like a negligible set or subsets, will be future episode fodder. For now, we focus on the original wonder. But you might be asking, aren't we supposed to be talking about numbers?
Yeah.
You wouldn't call the empty set a number? Well, I would agree with you there.
Right.
We call it a set, but it could be an empty anything. Maybe it's not actually a set at all, depending on the context. Whatever it is that we're pointing to here, it might just be the most important generator of numbers, all numbers,
and thus all. Now, again, I am. Human beings were pattern analysis creatures, or at least I am. I just look at this and I'm like, okay, it seems to be rotating in a plane. It almost seems to have some 3D. Wait, is that a Mobius twist at all on there? Well, it says like an axis. Some may say that may insinuate a wee bit of rotation. Again, total conjecture. Continue.
All form, all order, all pattern, and all structure in the universe. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves. The empty set has been an underrated friend of mathematicians for some time. Sprightly fellow and monster mathematician John Conway developed a special connection to the empty set, especially as he discovered one scheme to construct all numbers from the beginning out of nothing, or at least the best concept we have of it. Spending time with nothing like John Conway did begins to feel like everything. Conway was watching games of Go when he realized numbers were a special subset of all possible games. Namely, they are the totally ordered games, unfolding in order. Take a player on the left and one on the right, but instead of a game board, we have sets of numbers as our legal move.
Oh. Some differentiation. I don't know, is there a code for this? Is it like up, down, left, right, away, select, start? Wait. Away, select, start. That's 7. We had 7 derangements. 5 derangements is 44. All I know is the puzzle that Thad gave me. It took me like half an hour and 2 major hints. There were only 5 pieces. I was so confused. But hey, welcome, Snacks. Welcome, Gap. Good to see you. Good to see you, my friends. But we're just analyzing games and how they may or may not help us get a better view of our realm of persistence. I don't know. Oh, speaking of surreal physics, welcome, my friend. Yes, I it's a okay. After I listened to a video, I ended up going back while I was taking like a power nap, listening to it. I forget what it was, but this video, the original video, came up, and I was listening to it again. And I'm like, gets the old noggin a jogging here, but I just want to get up to some of the constructions and some may say potential bifurcations. But well, that's the thing. It's also smaller YouTuber as well. One of the other reasons too. It's like you can have the big YouTubers and everything, but when someone comes along and they put in a lot of effort, and especially if I happen to maybe bias towards some of the construction, yeah, of course I'm going to do it. I'm just going to be honest about it. But we continue.
Or our freedoms. Each player has their perspective. New moves can be created in turn based on previous moves in previous games. They just have to follow one rule of order, which, as you'll see, looks familiar to any student of Didaking.
Okay. So you get 2 players. Again, it brings me back to the NES days. It's like you just have your controller, you can do so many different things, and it's like, all right. Again, my simple analysis to try to get my mind around most of the stuff, it's like, oh my god, I don't understand. All right, the stuff doing things. Just my way of categorizing things, where it's like, okay, there's things that I can look into this. We have the internet now. You don't need to memorize absolutely everything. Just gonna get a view of how things are constructed.
Euclid's fifth book, whoever the author. It may not be the most interesting game, or rather game of
I've
games,
never played
but
Go
in
or
exchange for
Mahjong.
discipline and patience, we receive the numbers.
Oh, no,
All the
this is totally
numbers,
fine.
all
I
the
love meta
integers,
things.
and with infinite patience,
I love awkward moments.
much more.
What
It's not just a
literally what
mathematical
my
field,
Patreon is.
it's a proper class, which means it can do things that sets can't. It constructs not just the rationals, but the irrationals, and the transcendentals, and the ordinals, all of the reals and their.
See, I don't even know what all those things are. Like, I've looked them up before. I kind of know it, but I don't necessarily retain it and everything. But it's like, the more I do it, the more I practice it. Like, every time I go into Wolfram Alpha, it's like, all right, I see these equations. I know the symbology and everything. It's like, I can go through and put this in. But even just doing that thing the other day, it still took me an hour. I confused the Planck time with the Planck temperature. One's a big T and one's a little t. I mean, it's only like 76 orders of magnitude difference. I'm like, why am I getting 10 to the negative 99 or something like that? This doesn't make any sense. Noob error, but okay.
Their extensions. This conception of numbers would later be called the Surreals by Don Knuth, Conway's collaborator on them. But Conway himself quite simply called them the numbers. He later
Now, when I just see that, I'm just seeing hypergraphs from the Wolfram Physics project. It's like they're working on it. When I'm watching Jonathan basically just model like 2 black holes coming together and everything, I'm like, at that point, I'm like, that young man is a wizard. A wizard is a person who changes the world around them via verbal and somatic components, apparently coding as well. But it's literally, if you Google like Wolf from Fisk Project, that one of the presentations was, I think, at Harvard, and you just look at it, I'm like, okay, you're just analyzing all the possible outcomes, and if numbers happen to follow that naturally, some may say, pun totally intended. I think that's pretty cool. We'll just wrap up here. So links in the doobly-doo if anyone else wants to watch the video. I
explained the experience
enjoyed
like he was walking around in a dream for weeks after his discovery. All it took was a rule of order and a kind of metagame, maybe the simplest. From all known moves for L and R, that's the left player and the right player's options, respectively, you're allowed to create new moves that become new games in their own right by maintaining the rule of order. Conway informally talks about this rule as what defines the strength of a position in a game. Interesting. That means it's simultaneously relative while being a kind of mutual agreement. We can read strength more generally as a kind of orderliness. Formally, this breaks down into a generative rule and a discriminating check. For machine learning peeps, no, this architecture wasn't invented with GANs. Pitting a critical filter against a force of creation has always been how stuff gets done, at least stuff that survives
okay.
the test.
See, at that point, that's one of those things where my mind just gets blown right there. So we're going to leave it at that because, okay, we're halfway through the video. If you want to find out what happens next, you're going to have to go check out Surreal Physics' channel. Links in the doobly-doo to specifically this video. But, hey, that's all I got for right now. Peace out, everybody. Be safe. And rumor has it, 2023 is the year to see. Peace out, everybody.
Have you guys checked out the Memes of Destruction's channel? He's an interesting dude. I like